Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I'd really appreciate your comment. It helps me understand if you enjoyed the story and how I can improve in future ones. Name's Evan, 38. I run operations at a distribution warehouse in Houston. That Tuesday I was locking the bay doors, counting pallets in my head, when my phone buzzed with a girls' night selfie from my wife. Same dress she'd worn to work, different bar from the one she'd named. Neon sign over her shoulder didn't match. Small thing. Except the small things had been piling up for a month and a half. The routine at home had shifted the way a picture tilts on a wall. Subtle at first. She stayed late out of nowhere, slept on the far edge of the bed, flinched when I reached for her shoulder. The phone never faced up anymore. New passcode. A glossy tone to her voice when she said she was busy. The little digs started too. You love routine more than people. You're so predictable. Needling comments delivered with a smile that never reached her eyes. I didn't bite. I took it all in and stayed steady. That selfie sat in my pocket through the last walkthrough. When I clocked out, I scrolled back to it and zoomed. The bar wasn't near her friend's condo. It was a rooftop, heaters and chrome cages, skyline behind the glass. I drove home slow, no radio, letting the pattern show itself without me forcing it. By the door, her heels weighted neatly like she'd set a stage. The living room smelled of a new perfume I hadn't seen on the counter. Dinner was quiet. She told me about her day in a way that sounded rehearsed. I asked simple things about the team meeting she supposedly led, who spoke up, who pushed back. She waved a hand and said, "It's not important." Then asked if we could eat on the couch because she was exhausted. The TV filled the space where our lives used to be. During a commercial, I watched her unlock her phone under the blanket. Thumb moved fast. Screen dimmed when I shifted. 2 days later, a charge hit our joint card for 2 cocktails at a rooftop lounge we've never visited. Not a huge amount, just precise enough to be deliberate. That night, I didn't bring it up. I folded laundry, took out the trash, answered 2 late emails from my night crew. Calm is a choice. People show you more when you're not chasing them around the room with questions. Saturday put the first crack in her script. At noon, a coworker's wife posted a story from that same rooftop, her reflection in a patio heater, skyline behind her. In the chrome, I caught something else. My wife's profile, turned toward a tall guy in a light jacket. Not a crime scene, just closeness you don't share with strangers. The timestamp matched the night she swore she was with the girls. I spent the afternoon cleaning the garage. Hands moving, mind clear. I wasn't building a case. I was deciding what I was willing to live with. People think anger makes men reckless. Truth is, precision does the job better. By evening, I'd settled on one thing. I was done pretending I couldn't see what was in front of me. She came home late, hair perfect, lips red, energy loud. She started a story before I even asked, a long one about fighting traffic to get to her friend's place, about a movie I know her sister hates, about how I should be more supportive when she needs to decompress. That word always shows up right before a lie. I set plates on the table and let her talk herself in circles. Halfway through her pasta, I put my fork down. "How was your evening on the roof?" She blinked. "Fork hovered." "What roof?" "The one with the patio heaters." "Good view. Wind up there." She snorted and reached for a napkin. "I was at my sister's. We watched that awful rom-com you hate. You'd have been miserable." The tone was casual, but the eyes told on her. She didn't ask which roof. She went straight to a story with a built-in jab at me, as if my taste in movies could explain a city skyline. "Your sister's place," I said. "Did she fix that broken balcony door?" "What?" "The balcony door. Last month you said it stuck. Wind whistled whenever someone opened it." Her face shifted a millimeter. "Maintenance came. It's fine." "Good," I said and took another bite. No accusations. I let the silence measure her. She tried to drown it. More chatter about the rom-com's plot, more detail than I asked for. She started laughing at her own description, too loud for the punchline. I just watched the way her fingers hovered over her phone like it might jump. Later we stood in the kitchen. The sink ran. She scrolled. I dried my hands and leaned on the counter. Question. She exhaled like I'd put a weight on her back. "Evan, I'm exhausted." "It's short." I held her eyes. "Who's the guy in the light jacket?" The phone paused in midair. She didn't flinch. She went still, which is its own kind of panic. "There is no guy? You're inventing drama. You've been weird lately." And then the pre-packaged lines came out. I was jealous. I was controlling. I was insecure. She stacked them fast. Words meant to shove me into a corner I stopped standing in years ago. Okay, I said. Calm. Then this will be easy. She folded her arms and leaned back into the counter like it could hold her up. What's going to be easy? Truth. One word. She hates when I do that, when I refuse to enter the maze she built. The sink dripped. The house felt smaller than it had ever felt. It's normal to have male friends, she said. Softer now, gentler tone, as if the right music could change the movie. I shouldn't have to defend every conversation. You don't, I said. Not to me. Defend it to yourself. She smiled without her eyes. You sound ridiculous. I straightened. Then do me a favor. What favor? Go ahead, text him. I could hear my own heartbeat. Steady. Tell him you're free, starting tomorrow. The sentence landed and broke open the room. She didn't move for half a second. Then her fingers slipped. The phone hit the counter, skidded, and clipped the floor with a sound that felt heavier than the plastic deserved. Her mouth opened. No words came. No. Please, she finally managed. The voice was small. I didn't raise mine. I'm not asking a question. She swallowed. You're overreacting. Or I'm reacting on time. I pushed away from the counter and walked past her to the hallway. My body felt light. Not happy, just done. Behind me, she said my name. Not a command. A warning to herself that a line she thought was invisible had always been painted in bright color. I went to the bedroom and opened the window a few inches. The night air carried the city in. Distant traffic, someone's music, the ordinary world going on. I sat on the edge of the bed, stared at my hands, and waited for the quiet to settle inside me. In the doorway she hovered, phone in hand, watching me as if I might tell her how to undo it. There are moments you remember for their heat, and there are moments you remember for their temperature falling. This one was the latter. Yelling never started. Doors stayed on their hinges. I drew a line in a room I pay for, in a life I built, with a voice that didn't shake. Down the hall, the sink finally stopped dripping. She stood there, breath unsteady, and for the first time in months the silence between us told the truth, without help from anyone's story feed. I slept. Alarm at 5:30, shoes on by 5:40, gym by 6 o'clock. Steel and rubber, counting reps, air moving clean through my chest. Back home, I showered, brewed coffee, and opened my banking app. Limits first. I called the credit union, verified two-factor, and set cash withdrawals from joint accounts to the minimum, $100 per day, total. I left a small buffer for groceries, nothing more. I changed the primary email for alerts to mine and disabled overdraft courtesy. I set rails so the train couldn't jump tracks. At 7:18 a.m., the first notification hit. ATM declined. Exceeds daily limit. 5 minutes later, another attempt at a different branch. Same result. Then a third, in the lobby of a gas station on the way to her office. Each ding was a metronome for the part of me that used to make excuses for her. People don't make 3 identical mistakes in 10 minutes. People test fences to see if they hold. By 7:45 the text started. First the sugar. Can we talk? I'm confused about money stuff. There's an issue with the card. Then the tremor. Why would you mess with our accounts without telling me? I put my phone face down and made eggs. 10 minutes later, my screen lit up with an entire weather system. Pleading, accusation, apology, accusation again. She blew up my phone with phases, denial, anger, bargaining in under 20 minutes, then pivoted to blame. You're blowing this up over nothing. I wiped my hands on a towel and answered with 3 words. Check your email. I drafted it before sunrise. New account numbers routed to my name only. Notice of separation of finances effective immediately. Joint subscription passwords changed. Authorized user removed from the credit card. A polite paragraph instructing vendors to bill us separately going forward. Clear, simple, and cold enough to hold shape. She called twice. I let both ring out. When she tried a third time, I replied with a text and a number for my counsel-to-be, labeled attorney, initial consult. Direct anything important there. We'll keep everything clean. I wasn't baiting her. I was removing the stage. At 9 o'clock I was downtown, 4th floor, a law office with quiet carpet and the smell of paper and printer toner. The attorney was steady. No promises, just a legal map laid flat. Temporary separation with temporary orders. Exclusive use of the house to prevent revolving door chaos. Exclusive possession of my vehicle. financial restraining orders to bar dissipation of assets, a clean request for status quo on bills I'll pay directly, documented inventory of high-value property, starting with her jewelry, my tools, electronics, and the safe. I spoke in short lines. No speeches about betrayal. Facts and dates. She nodded, made notes, and tightened the plan. We set 3 immediate actions. 1. File for separation with temporary orders that afternoon. 2. Schedule service through a professional process server at a neutral location, her office lobby, public enough to be real, discreet enough to avoid a performance. 3. Send a letter to the bank instructing them to maintain the $100 limit and flag any attempts to create new credit tied to our joint address. The attorney added one more. Notify HR to redirect my next paycheck to the new account and remove her from any automatic allowances tied to my benefits. I sent the payroll form from the office Wi-Fi while she drafted the filing. Simple work done fast. By 10:30, my phone buzzed again. More failed withdrawals, this time from a supermarket ATM across town. She was making a circuit. I pictured the screen telling her no over and over, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Steadiness. Not joy or revenge. Just ground under my feet. A year ago, I would have argued in our kitchen about principles while money leaked into a plan I didn't consent to. This morning, the rules were written in bank code and court forms. We were no longer debating what respect meant. We were running a process built to prevent damage while feelings caught up to facts. Around lunch, she switched tactics. I can't believe you're involving a lawyer. That's extreme. We could discuss this like adults. Adults pay attention to timestamps. Adults don't press the same ATM 3 times in 30 minutes after being told no. I didn't respond. I signed the affidavit, initialed 3 exhibits, and watched the paralegal assemble the packet with a calm that made me feel taller. The attorney slid a printed schedule across the desk, 2 pickup windows for her belongings in week 1 and week 3, each supervised, no private meetings, and no key retention. I approved both windows and added 1 line. No entry while I'm not present. Third party on site to witness transfers. She nodded. Evidentiary hygiene matters. At 1:05, the process server texted a brief confirmation, assigned, en route, service planned for late afternoon. I pictured the lobby with the glass doors and the security desk. Not shame, just consequences delivered with a timestamp. If she wanted a conversation, she'd have it in the space where adults handle their business. On the way back to my truck, I called the insurance provider and removed her as the listed driver on my vehicle, then emailed the homeowner's insurer to add a note about pending separation and to require dual authorization for policy changes. I wasn't punishing her. I was closing the windows a storm likes to find. She tried one more angle mid-afternoon. We have friends in common. You're making this ugly. Let's just pause, okay? I'll come home, and we can talk without all this paperwork. Paperwork exists because talk already failed. I sent a single sentence. Counsel will coordinate. She sent 5 question marks, then a photo of the 2 of us from a vacation 3 summers ago. I looked at the desert sky in that picture and felt nothing but distance between the people we were and the people on my phone right now. At 3:20, another bank alert rolled in. POS declined. Merchant category, jewelry. A spike of something hot moved through me and then faded. She was either buying a trophy or trying to convert cash to an object she could pawn later. It didn't matter which. The limit did exactly what a boundary is supposed to do. Removed temptation, protected the line item that keeps the lights on. I spent the last hour of the workday with my crew, checking inventory counts and signing off on a late truck. I told my manager I'd be steady through quarter end and that my phone might be on silent more often for a bit. He nodded the way men nod when they don't pry, but understand. My life would continue to function because it was built to function. At 4:12, the process server sent 2 words, service complete. No drama in the text, no color commentary. Done is beautiful. 5 minutes later, she called me, and I let it go to voicemail. Then came the message, shaky breath, righteous outrage, bargaining wrapped around nostalgia, and finally the line she thought would knock me off center. I can't believe you'd humiliate me at work. You're destroying us over a misunderstanding. I listened once and deleted it. I answered with the only thing that kept us both honest. All further communication through counsel. Pickup window details to follow. Take care. She replied with a wall of text that started with vows and ended with insults. then circled back to finances and fairness. Boundaries don't process walls of text. Boundaries file them in a folder named Evidence and go make dinner. At home, I cooked a steak, cleaned the pan, and gathered the few items that could go missing if someone tried to make the house confuse me. Birth certificate, passport, title, a small box of family photos that actually matter. I locked the safe, set a simple camera facing the garage entry, and wrote out a list for the first pickup window: clothes, toiletries, laptop. No keepsakes until the second window, after the inventory. If she wanted to accuse me of chaos, she would have to do it while standing in front of order. Around 8, she tried the high road she never traveled before. "Let me come by tonight. No drama. I'll sleep on the couch. We can talk in the morning." No, nothing good happens after dark when people feel cornered. I sent the schedule again and put my phone on Do Not Disturb except for emergency numbers. She could melt down into the blue bubble if she wanted. I wouldn't be there to mop it up. Before bed, I checked the attorney's email one more time. Filing confirmed. Hearing for temporary orders requested. Court calendar pending. It was the right kind of waiting, the kind where the work is finished and gravity does the rest. I folded the printed copy of the filings into a manila folder and slid it into the desk drawer, right next to the warranty papers for the appliances. That felt fitting. A failed machine goes into a folder until the next step. When I turned off the lights, the house felt like itself again. Quiet without tension. Air that moved. My phone sat dark on the nightstand. She could sprint through every phase 5 more times before sunrise. My answer would be the same tomorrow as it was today: rails and a line that doesn't move. Service landed at 4:12 yesterday. By 8 o'clock this morning, she was on the porch with sunglasses and a soft voice. I opened the door just enough to stand in it. My neighbor, who agreed to witness the first pickup, stayed in the hallway with folded arms. "I'm here for my things," she said. Eyes glossy, perfume loud, hands empty. "Window is tomorrow at 10, I answered. Supervised. "We'll stick to the list." She tried to lean past me. I didn't move. Today isn't on the schedule. The first tactic was guilt. "We've built a life, and you're throwing it in the trash over a misunderstanding." She let the word hang between us as if gravity might flip. I pointed to the printout taped by the lock. 2 pickup windows, time limits, clearly numbered boxes. She stared at it like it had insulted her. Then came seduction. Chin tilt, half smile, the old playlist in her pocket running through her head. "We can fix this. You know we can." The hallway witness cleared her throat, and the spell broke without effort from me. "Window is tomorrow," I repeated. "If you need anything urgent, have counsel email mine." She pivoted to anger so fast, it almost sounded rehearsed. "You humiliated me at work. You embarrassed me in front of my team." I thought of the server's 2-word text, "service complete," and felt only relief. Public enough to be real, discreet enough to deny her an audience. She left with a stomp that tried to say I would pay for this. The neighbor watched her go and shook her head once, slow, the way you watch someone choose the wrong door. The day built its rhythm. I ate, worked, answered 2 emails from my attorney, then hit the gym. In the locker room, one of the guys I spot sometimes sat on the bench shaking his head at his phone. "Man," he said, "you see this?" He didn't know much about my situation beyond the ring that no longer sat on my hand. He angled the screen. The man from the rooftop, light jacket, smile that looked rehearsed, was in a picture from 6 months back, standing with a woman and a toddler in matching shirts. His caption, "Grateful for my family and our next chapter in Denver." The post was 2 weeks old. A second buddy chimed in later, same story from a different angle. The guy had transferred with his company and moved his wife and kid out of state. The timeline overlapped the days my wife was playing rooftop roulette. I put my phone away and finished my sets. The knowledge didn't change my steps. It only clarified what they were for. By afternoon, she found her own version the hard way. A friend of hers forwarded a screen recording of the man's account before he switched to private. My wife texted me 3 times in 1 minute, whole paragraphs without punctuation, then called and hung up before voicemail caught it. I let the calls evaporate. Counsel can handle storms. At 10 next morning, she arrived for the first pickup window with a tote bag and a face set to brave. The neighbor stood by the front closet. I unlocked the door, stepped back, and pointed at the taped list: clothes, toiletries, laptop, shoes. She scanned it and immediately tried to add a jewelry box that wasn't on the sheet. I shook my head. Inventory after hearing. Today is basics. Do you have any idea how cruel this is? She asked, already moving toward the dresser. It's order, I said. Cruelty was the lies that required it. Her eyes flashed, then watered, then settled on something beyond me. She wandered into the kitchen and ran her fingers over the counter as if the surface would plead her case. He ghosted me, she blurted. The words shocked her more than me. He just stopped. No explanation. She looked up, searching my face for surprise, for pity, for anything she could use to build a bridge back to the old house that didn't exist. He didn't stop, I said. He moved, with his wife and kid. Calm, edged like a straight blade. You were never the destination. She swallowed the air in the room and blinked hard. Rage tried to rise. Shame pushed it back down. Who told you that? Friends talk. Phones talk. The truth talks even when people refuse to. She stood very still and made the small sounds people make when they are recalculating their place in a story. So that's it. You don't even care that I'm that he. I care that you burned our house while I slept in it. I pointed to the first box. Pack your basics. She closed her mouth around whatever line came next and started folding clothes with a speed that said she wanted this part to end. When she tried to slide a framed photo from our last vacation into the tote, I shook my head again. Second window, I said. After inventory. She hissed something under her breath about control. I kept my hands at my sides and counted her items aloud as they entered the bag. Witness wrote the numbers next to each category. We worked through shoes, makeup, toiletries. When the hour expired, I closed the door. She stayed on the porch, staring at the wood like it might open on sympathy. It didn't. That afternoon, my attorney called with a date. Temporary orders hearing set for Wednesday. The motion requested exclusive use of the house, exclusive possession of my truck, and a standard restraining order for finances. No big purchases, no hidden credit. The part that mattered most to me was the structure. Chaos thrives in silence. Courtrooms speak loud enough to keep it hungry. Her social circle shifted too. The loudest friend from that rooftop story went quiet after someone in her office saw the service in the lobby. Fun becomes expensive when it's cash you don't control. Brunch posts thinned. Empowerment captions turned into self-care quotes with comment sections that had fewer hearts. Evenings stayed steady. I cooked, cleaned, read, slept. She tried every door. Blame. You're destroying years over a few texts. Bargain. If we pause the filings, I'll start counseling. Panic. I'm at the curb. Please talk to me. I kept the same answer. Counsel will coordinate. The words felt clinical because they needed to be. I wasn't a rescue line. I was a man protecting what remained from further damage. Wednesday came with the weight of fluorescent lights and a judge who had heard every version of our story 10,000 times. My attorney spoke in clear lines. Service completed. Financial limits set to protect shared assets. Pickup windows supervised and orderly. Evidence minimal but sufficient. Inconsistent statements. Third-party images. Spending that suggested conduct outside the marriage. The judge signed temporary orders in under 10 minutes. House to me. Vehicle to me. Finances under restraint. Communication through counsel. A date set for the next step. We left with paper and oxygen. On the sidewalk, she waited with her attorney. Her eyes met mine for half a second. Rage had burned out. Panic cooled. What remained was the quiet terror of someone who just learned gravity doesn't negotiate. She took a step toward me. I stood still. Her counsel touched her elbow and guided her the other way. At the second pickup window, she arrived early and tried a new approach. Contrition. I'm ashamed, she said, voice low. He lied to me. I was stupid. I want to fix our home. The neighbor witness laid the inventory sheet on the counter without comment. I opened the hall closet and pulled the labeled box of keepsakes we had agreed she could take. These are yours, I said. The rest will be decided later. She ran a hand over the lid and stared at her reflection in the microwave door. For a second, I saw the woman I married. Then I remembered what it cost to stand here, and the image receded. She tried one last small cruelty while packing. A story about me being cold to her at a party 3 years ago, as if ancient frost explains fresh fire. I didn't answer. She heard the silence and pushed a different angle. We could start over. New city, new rules. I'll cut ties with everyone. I thought of the man on the rooftop cutting ties with everyone but his family, then moving states with them while my wife rehearsed freedom in bathrooms with good lighting. You already started over, I said. You just forgot to tell the person you were leaving. The last item in the last box was a sweater she wore on our first road trip. She picked it up, held it to her chest, then set it down as if it weighed more than all the others. When she carried that box to the door, she paused. Please, she said. Not sure what came after the word. Forgive? Pause. Undo? I closed my hand around the edge of the door. Respect first, I said. Everything else fails without it. I didn't make a speech. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. Her call slowed after that. Friends stopped calling me altogether. The quiet grew a backbone. The house held its shape. Some evenings I would catch the faint echo of her steps on the stairs, a muscle memory trying to convince my brain she might still live here. Then I'd look at the inventory list on the counter, the copy of the court order on the fridge, and the empty ring tray in the drawer. Those were the true sounds of consequence. I saw her once more, by accident, outside a grocery store. She looked smaller around the eyes. I looked at her the way you look at a familiar intersection where you were once hit and now always slow down. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. We stood in that useless silence until a cart scraped concrete and gave us both something else to hear. I nodded once. She didn't move. On the drive home, I realized the revenge people talk about isn't loud. It isn't flames across a skyline. It's precision. It's a man who says what he will do, does it, and leaves the door only as open as the paperwork says. It's watching the person who tried to trade on your stability learn what happens when that stability moves without her. The phone buzzed when I parked. An email from counsel with the next date and a reminder to maintain the record. I filed it in the correct folder, checked the lock on the safe, turned off the hall light, and went to bed. Sleep came fast. The storm behind the door could blow all night if it wanted. My house was built for weather. Mornings settled into me the way it used to before the noise. Gym, shower, coffee, first truck check with my crew, a day that holds its own weight. The orders pinned to the fridge turned the house into solid ground. I didn't wake to the sound of a phone deciding my mood. I woke to my own alarm and the quiet that follows a choice. The second week after the hearing, her messages slowed, then shifted to emails with subject lines that tried on new costumes. Closure, perspective, one conversation. I answered each with the same 6 words. Counsel has everything, schedule runs as filed. My attorney handled the rest. The calm felt unglamorous from the outside, I'm sure. Inside, it felt like oxygen. Work found its rhythm again. Numbers balanced, trucks hit their slots. My team joked without studying my face for trouble. I started staying late because I wanted to, not because I was avoiding a house full of static. On Friday, my brother texted about a weekend hike. I said yes without editing my day for someone else's story. Saturday morning, boots on dirt, sun through pine, lungs doing their job. Her side of town got smaller. A mutual friend mentioned she moved into a one-bedroom near the freeway. The social feed that used to deliver bright captions turned into quiet photos of mugs and windows and inspirational lines. The comments shrank. The crowd that cheered her freedom stopped showing up when freedom asked for rent, deposits, and rides after late shifts. I offered no mockery and no comfort. Distance did the work. The final hearing came faster than I expected. Courtrooms have a way of removing fantasy. The judge read the stipulations, listened to 2 short arguments that weren't really arguments, and asked exactly 3 questions. My attorney answered each with a document and a date. Her side tried to push for more of the retirement split. The judge glanced at the ledger and shook his head once. House to me. Truck to me. Accounts separated as already structured. Personal property divided per inventory. I drove home without the radio. The house greeted me the way a good tool does. Nothing extra, just dependable. On the entry table, the ring tray waited. I placed the band in a small envelope and filed it with the case paperwork. Not a wound on display. A record of what happened and how it ended. That night, she sent a letter through counsel. For pages long, handwritten, careful. I read it once. It started with shame, passed through regret, and ended with a list of future promises. Counseling, no contact with anyone who had blurred lines, a move to a different job. I saw the effort. I also saw the timeline that never lied. Dates, charges, silence. The moment the phone slipped from her hand when I told her to text him. I asked my attorney to forward my reply. 2 sentences. I hope you find clarity. The terms stand. People keep asking if I feel anger, revenge, relief, grief. The answer is simple. I feel alignment. My actions finally match my standards. I owe no explanations for protecting my home from someone who treated it like a waiting room. Days got plain in the best way. Lift, work, eat. Call my dad on Tuesdays. Oil the hinges that squeaked. Replace the cracked faceplate in the hallway. Meet a friend for coffee and talk about baseball and whether the rookies will keep their bats hot through August. I return calls. I slept through nights. Peace isn't dramatic. It's a list you finish and a door that locks with one turn. I saw her once more, months later, outside the courthouse after she filed a name change request. She wore a neutral coat and a careful face. She looked at me, then at the steps, then at me again. I nodded and kept moving. No words. We had said everything worth saying in documents stamped with the state seal. Her panic didn't become my problem. Loss reached her on its own timetable. Friends who stopped answering. A man who moved states with the family he never left. A mother who saw the screenshots and decided to sit this version of the story out. She learned that consequences don't need volume to be real. I kept boundaries the way I keep any tool. Clean, simple, ready. Pickups happened exactly when the schedule said. No extra minutes. No late-night doorbell. Some nights I walk past the drawer that holds the envelope with the ring and the stamped decree. I leave it alone. It exists so I never have to argue with myself about whether I imagined all of this. A buddy asked if I'd ever give love another shot. I laughed, not at the idea, but at how people ask it like it's a switch. I told him the same thing I tell myself every morning. I'm open to what respects me. Anything else gets no oxygen. If that reads cold to someone who loves chaos, so be it. Warmth grows where boundaries hold. On the first Sunday after the decree, I grilled in the backyard and ate at the small table alone. The air had that thin spring edge. Somewhere down the block a kid practiced a trumpet and missed half the notes. It still sounded good to me. Failure Trying Again is a better song than a lie sung in perfect pitch. I send no messages to mutual friends to steer the narrative. I need no win that requires someone else to clap. My life is exact now. It holds what I put in it and returns what I earn. That's enough. Respect is not negotiable. It wasn't a slogan on a wall or a line for a judge. It was the quiet decision to step out of a circus, write down the truth, and act as if my standards mattered more than my fear of starting over. She can call it cold. She can call it cruel. I call it accurate. I used to think endings had to be loud to count. Now I know better. An ending can be a lock clicking, a truck ignition catching on the first turn, a man paying his bills on time, a bed that holds sleep instead of arguments. It can be the way a front door sounds when it closes behind you and there's nothing left to explain. And it can be a sentence that fits in one line and governs an entire life. Protect your peace and never trade respect for company.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.